Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting on the disease I've been studying throughout the semester. This is maple syrup urine disease. It is a genetic disease that is common in the pediatric population. So just an overview of what we're going to cover during this PowerPoint. We are going to talk about the definition and characteristics of maple syrup urine disease, otherwise known as MSUD, the molecular causes of the disease, the mode of inheritance, and how it is detected early on. I would like to say it is crucial that maple syrup urine disease is detected early on, and we'll talk about that a little bit more why later. So, as I said before, maple syrup urine disease is a genetic disease that is prevalent in the pediatric population. It gets its name because it is most commonly identified by the sweet odor of the urine in infants and the sweet odor of the cerumen. It may progress to vomiting, abnormal movements, lethargy, or intermittent apnea, among other things, and if it worsens, it eventually leads to neurological deficits, respiratory failure, physical disabilities, and possibly death. We'll talk about why this happens later, but as time progresses, it gets progressively worse for the body. Maple syrup urine disease can be detected as early as 12 hours after birth. During that time period, the earlier the intervention, the better it is for the individual. This disease can be broken down into 4 types: classic, intermediate, intermittent, or thiamine responsive. Most commonly is the classic. Intermediate and intermittent are very similar to classic. However, the way that the symptoms present and when they present changes a little bit. Thiamine responsive talks specifically about thiamine, which is one of the amino acids. So maple syrup urine disease is a rare autosomal recessive metabolic disease. This means that it needs to be inherited, and both recessive genes need to be present for an individual to have maple syrup urine disease. People who have one recessive gene and one dominant gene will not have the disease, even though they will be a carrier. We'll see in some examples I have later on, but this also means that this disease kind of can tend to skip generations. There are 3 types of genes associated with MSUD. This includes the BCKDHA gene, the BCKDHB gene, and DBT. This stands for the branch chain keto acid dehydrogenase E1 alpha polypeptide, branch chain keto acid dehydrogenase E1 subunit beta, and the dihydrolipoamide branch chain transacylase E2. All of these genes are typically responsible for making proteins that break down leucine, isolene, and valine, which are all amino acids that are found in breast milk. Without them, these amino acids build up in the body and will eventually become toxic to cells, tissues, and especially the nervous system. So, the way that the BCKDH genes and DBT mutations affect the body are a little bit different. The BCKDH enzyme complex helps to break down those amino acids, while the DBT produces a protein that is critical for that complex to function. This allows for the normal breakdown of those amino acids. BCKDHA mutations often change single amino acids in the alpha subunit, while the BCKDHB gene mutation alters amino acids in the beta subunit of the same enzyme complex. Mutations in the DBT complex, or gene, result in the insertion or deletion of small portions of DNA in the gene. This can also result in changes in single DNA base pairs. So what are the chances that somebody gets MSUD? MSUD worldwide affects 1 in every 185,000 newborns. However, it is more common in the Old Order Mennonite population, which from my research seems to be commonly located around the Pennsylvania area. And here it affects 1 in 380 newborns. But really, when it comes down to it, it depends on your genes. So I have a Punnett square here where we see, we'll make this mom. Mom is a carrier for the gene. So we'll have the large M mark the dominant gene, saying that she does not have MSUD, and the small m as the carrier part. So dad here has 2 recessive genes, so he would present with MSUD. There is a 50% chance that their child does not have MSUD but is a carrier, similar to mom, or that they do have MSUD, similar to dad. To go more in depth, I have a pedigree here. So earlier I talked about how MSUD can skip generations, which many autosomal recessive diseases can. We see this here. So the blue dots mark carriers of the genes. If we look here where Mike and Madison have children, and all of their children are unaffected. However, Miguel here is a carrier of the disease, and he happens to marry Jessica, another carrier of the disease. Their child, Chris, presents with the disease, even though this generation did not have it. This usually doesn't happen for more than one generation, so as you can see, Mike had siblings who presented with MSUD. We see the same thing here with Toby and Kate, where they are both carriers of the gene, and they produce one offspring, Jack, who is also a carrier, and one offspring, Beth, who has the disease. This presents those chances of the Punnett square that I showed earlier, where it's about a 50-50 chance. So, MSUD is most commonly found during newborn screening. This is a mandatory test in the U.S. The only thing is that in the U.S., each state changes what is mandatory within the newborn screening. Because it's federally recommended, it is in, I believe, all 50 states' tests, while some tests may not be. However, costs do vary between states. So this test can be as little as $15 or nothing to as much as $60. It is a public health screening and it is mandatory. Outside of that, genetic screening may include genetic counseling, which looks at a family's pedigree, or molecular testing of the umbilical cord, which pulls blood from the fetus's umbilical cord before birth. The only thing with this is that there's an increased risk for false negatives. This is the same with if that newborn screening is done too early, there is also an increased risk for false negatives. Because of that, you want to be sure that your newborn is tested about 12 hours after birth, but not too soon and not too late. Normally, those screening tests come back within the first week, which is more than enough time to have proper intervention. Presently, we don't see a lot of problems with maple syrup urine disease. It's something that gets treated on very early on, and after that, it's not something that requires any more treatment. Besides that, here are the references I used. Thank you.